Byju's shareholders, including Prosus, Envy and Peak 15 partners, have voted to oust its founder as chief executive officer. All right, let me in fact take that across to Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya as well. Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya, obviously this was coming. Many believe that this was coming for a while. But now with this decision being taken, what do you read between the lines into the future of Byju's and now what happens next? Because obviously this is something that the company plans to contest.
Yeah, if you compare it with, let's say, WeWork, which also had a massive devaluation and it also kind of melted down.
Yes.
What it looks like is that the valuation of Byju's is less than 1/100th of what it was, not 1/10th, not 1/15, 1/100th, which then raises a question that was there ever any revenue source, any credible revenue source coming in, or was it just a string of buyouts and smokes and mirror? I don't have the answer. It's just a question that comes out because the valuation has crashed by 1/100th. If there was a credible business model ever, then the valuation couldn't have come down to 1/100th. Also, as Dr. Kholi mentioned, Byju's went on to have a string of acquisitions from Akash, Whitehead Jr., and so on and so forth, a whole bunch of them, both in India and in US and elsewhere. Now, what happened to those acquisitions? Those were money-generating initiatives. Akash is a massively money-generating initiative. So where are these revenues going? What happened to these businesses? Were these businesses destroyed? And was it really a case of malified intention or incompetence? Was it a push by the investors to really grow fast, and which is not possible? Or was it the smokes and mirrors done by the founders? So these are questions that need to be answered. Reading between the lines, it's very difficult to find out what really happened. And again, as Dr. Kholi mentioned, it happens everywhere else also. But the scale of Byju's was really very large. And if you remember, in the first dot-com boom, there was e-Gurukul, which also scaled up. But there was an issue where people were not willing to have education through the internet. And Byju seemed to have broken that spell by making people come onto the internet and start getting education. In the K to 12 segment, which is children who are going to school segment, I don't think it has been demonstrated that the children and the students can go online and have an education. Perhaps again, as Dr. Kholi mentioned, perhaps during the COVID time that was happening, but post-COVID that's not true. So it's a business model that was based on a habit which has not changed. So Byju's kind of said that we are going to change the habit of students and they can come online and get educated. That proposition has not been proven, and therefore the whole proposition of Byju starts crumbling down. Everything else that they acquired, like Whitehead Jr., there were numerous accusations that those entities were actually using very forceful practices to kind of emotionally blackmail parents into putting their kids into programming and other kinds of education. Whitehead Jr. would say that we'll teach your children space AI. And this was about 3 years back. What does space AI mean for a 6th grader who just needs to do some very, very basic coding learning? And the content of that was also extremely questionable. Now, those kind of questionable businesses were acquired by Byju's, and we don't know what else was, what are the other acquisitions that Byju's did? Did they have any value? Did they bring any value? Did they provide any advantage to students who were the target market? Or was it all smokes and steam? I think at the end of the day, when the valuation crashes by 99%, which almost means that there is no value left to the company, there seems to be big question marks on what was really built then, what really happened in the last few years. Was something really built, or it was just nothing? It was just numbers being projected. If there was something built, then I'm sure and I hope Byju's will again rise from the ashes. But if there was nothing, and the proposition that people, and especially K to 12 students, can come online and get educated, if that proposition is not valid, then it'll be difficult for Byju's to come back, and that's a loss for the entire startup community.
Dr. Jaijit, at the end of the day, of course, do you believe this is a precedent for other companies as well? The way this entire episode has panned out, with the reluctance on the top level, finally investors taking things into their own hands, CEO being fired, is this a precedent for others too?
I hope not. How did it become this big becomes a question mark. $5 billion was duly being pumped into Byju's over a period of time, over 28 rounds of investment. It puts a question mark on the investment process itself, on the process of due diligence. Entities with such deep experience and expertise in finding out whether a company is profitable, in whether the business model is sustainable, whether the ethics are in place. They checked 28 times, and 28 times they put in the money, and then they're firing the CEO. There is something amiss in the entire ecosystem. I hope, therefore, that this does not get replicated. My other concern also is that we're talking about investors, we're talking about the founders. We're not talking about those who've already paid $1.5 lakh per course. Will the children continue to get that course, or will it stop? And who comes to their help? And will there be any continuity? What happens to the teachers who are in the roles? Will they be teaching the students? At the end of the day, it's the students and the teachers who will be at the receiving end, besides the investors. And obviously the investors are losing money, but then they did the due diligence. So, a lot of questions are coming up, and I think it's important for the government to step in at a certain level, especially in a sector like education. Education, healthcare, and agriculture are the cornerstones of our economy and society. So in these sectors, if we are having such entities which are coming in and promising that your child will become an Einstein, will teach you space AI programming, and so on and so forth, there needs to be some kind of a check and balance. I know the mood is to have very light regulations, and it should continue to be so. But within that light regulations framework, we need to have some regulatory constraints so that the hard-earned money of parents who are investing into their children's future, which is also the future of the country, does not go wasted in such initiatives which do not really contribute to education, as has come out. Because if it did contribute to education, then there would not be 99% loss of the total valuation of the company. Then there would have been a future of the company.